picture this, right? You are out to dinner with 5 of your friends. It is a fantastic night. The atmosphere is perfect. The conversation is flowing. And right before the waiter comes to take your order, someone at the table says something like, hey, let's just make this easy on everyone and split the bill evenly at the end.
Which, sounds completely harmless.
Exactly, yeah. It feels friendly, it feels convenient, but mathematically speaking, the second you all nod and agree to split that check, you have just stepped into a high-stakes psychological battleground.
And welcome to your custom-tailored deep dive. You have handed us an incredibly fascinating stack of sources today.
Oh, definitely. We are looking at everything from the behavioral economics of your 401k retirement plan to an NBER paper analyzing the online dating market in South Korea.
Right, plus a Gitcoin guide to quadratic voting systems, the Rubinstein-Bargaining model, and all the way to cutting-edge research testing how large language models handle classic game theory.
It is a lot to cover, but the core mission of today's deep dive is to decode the hidden games we play every single day. Because whether you are splitting a restaurant bill, swiping on a dating app, asking for a raise, or, programming an AI, there is this strict mathematical and strategic undercurrent dictating human and artificial decision-making.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the most relatable scenario in the stack, that dinner with your 5 friends. In economics, this is known as the unscrupulous diner's dilemma.
Yeah, the unscrupulous diner's dilemma perfectly illustrates how entirely rational individual choices can lead to, a disastrous outcome for the collective group.
Right. So let's look at the underlying mechanics of your dinner. You are staring at the menu. Ordinarily, you would just order the pasta.
Sure, it costs $15, it fills you up, and you're perfectly happy paying that price.
But tonight, the rules of the game have changed because the bill is being split 6 ways.
Mm-hmm.
So if you order the $45 dry-aged steak instead, you aren't actually paying $45.
You are only paying 1/6 that upgrade. The math basically dictates that your 5 friends are effectively subsidizing your luxurious meal.
Looking at this mathematically, it seems like the dominant strategy is to be utterly ruthless. I should just order the steak, get a fancy cocktail, and let everyone else foot the bill.
And acting purely in your own immediate self-interest, that actually is the mathematically optimal move.
Right, obviously.
But the trap closes when you realize everyone else at the table is running the exact same mental calculation. They also realize their expensive items are being subsidized by you.
Oh, so everyone orders the steak,
Yeah.
everyone gets the expensive cocktails, the bill just skyrockets.
Exactly. When the check finally arrives, every single person pays an exorbitant amount for a heavy, expensive meal they never would have purchased on their own. You all end up financially worse off.
It really feels like we are just wired for self-sabotage in groups. It's like a tragedy of the commons, but with appetizers. We are just prioritizing our short-term greed over our long-term wallet. And this isn't just theoretical, right?
No, not at all. In 2004, economists Nizi, Haruvi, and Yaif actually took this exact model out into a field experiment.
Oh, wow. What did they find?
They sent groups of 6 diners to a restaurant, and they found that people consume the most when the meal is completely free, they consume the least when they are paying individually, and right in the middle when splitting evenly.
Which means we just can't help ourselves. The immediate gratification overpowers the future pain of the bill.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, we can actually hack these selfish, short-sighted impulses using something like the Save More Tomorrow program.
Right, the SMART program by Thaler and Benartzi. Because instead of asking employees to take a pay cut today to save for retirement, which triggers that immediate loss aversion, they flipped it.
Exactly. Smart Tie's 401k contribution increases to future salary raises. The pain of saving is pushed to your future self.
Which worked incredibly well. At one anonymous manufacturer in the study, savings rates jumped from like 3.5% to 13.6% over 4 pay raises.
Because you are successfully tricking your future self into doing the right thing. But how do we successfully communicate our true intentions to others when everyone is looking out for themselves?
Which brings us to a fascinating field experiment in the South Korean online dating market. The NBER published a paper on this.
Right. They set up a controlled dating event with 613 participants.
And everyone could browse profiles and send out a maximum of 10 proposals to people they wanted to date. But the researchers introduced this new variable, virtual roses.
Yeah, a seemingly small addition that completely alters the signaling environment.
So everyone could send 10 messages, but 80% of the participants were given just 2 of these virtual rose icons to attach to their messages. The other 20% got 8 roses.
And they were basically told it was a way to express special interest.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Is this virtual rose just the digital equivalent of a peacock's tail? I mean, if it's completely free to send, why does it matter to the person receiving it?
Well, the distinction you are highlighting there is the difference between costly signaling and preference signaling.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure, so a peacock's tail, or an expensive degree, that is a costly signal. You prove your worth by visibly burning resources. But you are correct. The virtual rose costs $0. Its value doesn't come from a financial price tag.
It comes from opportunity cost, right?
Precisely. Because the roses are strictly limited, attaching one to a proposal carries a massive strategic weight. Every time you send a rose to one person, you are definitively taking it away from someone else.
So it forces you to prioritize. You can't just, copy and paste the same flattering message to all 10 people. You have to allocate a scarce resource.
And that proves you actually care about that specific person. The recipients intrinsically understood this math.
Yeah, the data is really striking. On a baseline level, merely attaching a virtual rose increased a proposal's acceptance rate by 3.3 percentage points.
Which equates to a 20% overall increase in a sender's baseline acceptance rate.
A 20% bump for attaching a free JPEG of a flower. But the breakdown of who actually accepted these roses is what really caught my eye.
Right, the desirability tiers. The researchers divided participants into top, middle, and bottom tiers.
And when a sender proposed to a recipient in a higher desirability tier, the effect of the rose was massive, like a greater than 50% increase.
Which reveals the true power of preference signaling. I mean, think about it from the perspective of a highly desirable person. They are inundated with proposals.
Right. They assume it's just a numbers game and people aren't serious.
Exactly. Highly desirable people often reject offers because they think the sender is just mass swiping. The recipient's time is incredibly valuable.
And they don't want to risk setting up a date with someone who might just flake.
Right. The rose cuts through that noise. It proves genuine interest and bridges the trust gap.
So a limited resource solves the problem of signaling an intense preference to one person. But how do you capture that intensity when a whole group of people needs to make a decision?
Standard voting frameworks struggle immensely with preference intensity. One person, one vote treats every issue equally.
Which brings us to the Gitcoin source on quadratic voting, or QV. Instead of one person, one vote, you get a budget of voice credits.
And the cost to vote is squared. Let's walk through that escalating math. If you want to cast one vote, it costs 1 credit.
Right.
2 votes cost 4 credits. 3 votes cost 9 credits. If you want 10 votes for a single issue, it costs you all 100 of your credits.
I'm going to push back here because this sounds like a complicated math test. Doesn't this just make voting too confusing for the average person and give power to people who can game the system?
What's fascinating here is that it actually forces moderation and protects minority interests. The escalating cost means you can't just casually dominate every issue.
Oh, so if you care deeply about one thing, you have to spend all your credits there.
Exactly, giving up your influence everywhere else on the ballot, and this is actively being tested in the real world.
Yeah, the Taiwan Presidential Hackathon uses quadratic voting to let citizens select civic tech projects.
And the Colorado State Legislature actually used it to prioritize spending bills.
The Colorado example is wild. The House Democratic Caucus used QV to figure out what mattered most to them, but then a state court struck the whole thing down.
Yeah, due to conflicts with open meeting transparency laws. QV typically requires anonymity to prevent vote buying and intimidation.
Which completely violated the public's right to see how their representatives were deciding. It really shows the tension between anonymous strategic voting and democratic accountability.
Right. Quadratic voting handles group priorities beautifully, assuming the legal system allows it. But what happens when coordination fails and you are locked in a direct adversarial standoff?
Like fighting for your salary with your boss. This traps us directly into the Rubinstein-Bargaining model and William Spaniel's advice on salary negotiations.
The Rubinstein model is an infinite horizon game where 2 people alternate offers to divide a pie.
And because of discount factors like the cost of delay or just impatience.
Exactly. It's like a melting ice sculpture on the bargaining table. Because the pie is constantly shrinking, the math proves the optimal move is an immediate agreement on the very first offer.
So bargaining isn't some movie scene where you give a clever, dazzling speech.
Not at all.
As William Spaniel says, the bargaining table isn't a game of chess. It's just the place where you declare checkmate.
I completely agree. Spaniel breaks this down by looking at the ultimatum game, where one side makes a take-it-or-leave-it offer.
And the proposer has all the power there.
Right. But the moment you are allowed to make a counteroffer, that absolute power evaporates.
But how do you actually gain leverage? Because the boss knows the pie is shrinking too, so they will just lowball the first offer.
Spaniel emphasizes that you increase your leverage strictly through outside options, like getting a competing job offer.
So if the company knows you have a baseline you will not drop below, they are forced to increase their initial offer.
Exactly. The first mover has an advantage, but your patience and your outside options dictate the math of the final offer.
You don't need charisma, you just need a competing offer. But, all these theories, Rubinstein, Diner's dilemma, signaling, they all rely on humans acting rationally and impatiently.
Which brings us to the twist. What happens when we remove the humans and let artificial intelligence play these games?
Your final source introduces fair game, a framework used to test large language models in game theory scenarios.
Right. Researchers tested Llama 3.1, Mistral Large, GPT-4, and Claude 3.5. They had them play the prisoner's dilemma and battle of the sexes.
But they added a brilliant variable. They tested them across 5 languages: English, French, Arabic, Vietnamese, and Mandarin.
Based on classical economic theory, we would expect a highly advanced AI to act like a perfectly rational actor.
So what does this all mean? Do these super smart AIs just ruthlessly optimize and crush the human mathematical models, or do they break the games completely?
This raises an important question, and the results are really surprising. Fair game shows that LLMs do not always comply with traditional game theory.
Wait, they don't?
No. They consistently exhibit unexpectedly cooperative behavior rather than the selfish, rational behavior human economic models predict.
So they choose to cooperate even when the math says they should betray.
Exactly. And furthermore, their behavior changes wildly depending on the language they are prompted in and the simulated personality they are assigned.
So language isn't just a neutral vehicle for vocabulary. AI agents have hidden biases based on their linguistic training.
Precisely. If the Vietnamese training data contains different cultural approaches to cooperation than the English data, the AI absorbs those norms. Its rationality is not an objective mathematical truth.
The implications of that are staggering. If we are going to use AI for automated dispute resolution, supply chain negotiations, or high-speed finance,
we have to understand that their rationality is not human rationality. It's a mirrored reflection of their specific linguistic data.
wow, what a journey this stack has been. To recap, we went from tricking ourselves into saving money to signaling a romantic interest with virtual roses.
To squaring our votes to protect minority interests with quadratic voting.
Yeah, to leveraging outside options for a raise, and finally, testing AI with those very same rules.
And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
Imagine a near future where your personal AI agent, armed with your quadratic voting credits and a virtual rose, is sent out to negotiate your salary using the Rubinstein model.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If AI is inherently more cooperative and infinitely patient compared to humans, who actually wins that negotiation? Your human boss or your automated agent?
That is an incredible question. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. The next time you are sitting at a restaurant and someone casually suggests splitting the check evenly, just smile, look around the table, and realize you are navigating a complex mathematical matrix. Decide carefully if you really want that steak